This is it, guys. This is what it's all about. So this is issue 1 of Bloodrik, and it's entirely by Andrew Krahnke. And I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but that's how I'm gonna do it. Andrew Krahnke wrote this, drew it, and I'm pretty sure he colored it too, which is amazing. He did all of the work on this comic. It's a total passion project. And you can tell by the cover, it's obviously gonna be kind of Conan the Barbarian-esque, and it's got like metal music roots. They've got his title written there, and then he's got it also in parentheses for those of us who can't read metal font. I appreciated it, honestly. And I'm normally not into Conan the Barbarian type stuff. It's just not really my aesthetic. But this art kind of reminds me of Daniel Warren Johnson already, just by the cover, and I like his art a lot, so I figured it was worth a try. And boy, was I right! Before we get into the actual story, there is this introduction he gave us on the first page, and it's all about what he went through as the writer and as the artist and the designer and the creator, trying to get this project done over the last 10 years. He's been working on this story for 10 years, and he talks about how frustrating it was and how many times he restarted, and the fact that he's an artist, not a writer, and writing is hard, so he just kept not liking what he came up with, and eventually he just said, I just gotta get this done and get it out there. And that's what we've got. And that's pretty great to get a comic at Image after only having published, one other comic under his name? I know he's been doing a lot of work, but if you look him up online, there's only like 2 series that have his name on them. So, it's pretty awesome. And what I'm always afraid of when I look at issue 1s by creators I don't know is that they've been working on it for like 10 years and it's their passion project. They put their whole heart into it and they're so proud of it. And you have these years and years and years of lead up and you finally have a comic come out one day and it's like it's been building to that day and then there's either no reception or there's barely any reception and there's some jerk like me saying it's terrible. That's what I'm afraid of here. I don't want to be the guy who takes a dream that they've been working on for a decade and just squishes it. You know? Because I can definitely relate to just grinding and grinding and grinding on something artistic that you know is important to you and you know it's going to be good. You just got to make it good and you finally get it done. I know that feeling and it sucks. Those 10 years suck. So I did really want to like this comic. I did get into this comic after the intro hoping I would really like it. But honestly, I don't think that had anything to do with how much I did end up liking it. This comic is great. The plot is so simple. It's such a simple plot and that's exactly how I like it. Because when the plot is super duper simple, it leaves lots of room for profound emotion and really zooming in on moments and it can really help you feel in touch with all the characters. And I grew up reading comics like Calvin and Hobbes and Bone more than almost anything else. So to me, comics just should take place in the woods. They're just always better if there's woods. And the plot of this story is essentially, man in woods is hungry. Man finally kills deer. Man is attacked by bear. That's it. Nothing else. And I don't feel like I'm giving you spoilers because the real value of this issue is just in following this guy through all the moments that get him through those plot points. The plot points aren't as important as just the connection we feel to this character. I love the way the forest is drawn in this book. I love the colors too. The colors are so simple, which is great because a lot of the time you get colorists who just want to do every single detail they possibly can and it just is, it's overwhelming. It's way too much color detail. It looks fake. It looks glossy. It has no aesthetic if there's too much detail in the coloring. But this coloring is simple, it's kind of flat colors with just some highlights, and it really builds an aesthetic. And it feels bleak too. He gets emotion across with very limited use of color. The panel size choices are great. Where he places the panels, when he doesn't have panels take up the whole page, it's great. The passing of time is so well done. The forest sounds are so profound and truthful. Instead of having our main character talk or think at us, we have this narration going on over the whole thing, which also lends more depth to the storytelling because it seems like this character is almost like a legend, and this other guy is telling everybody else about this legendary guy who is out in the woods hunting. It feels like it's a folktale. It feels like you're being told a folktale, and you're also seeing it play out like it's on a screen. And the fact that the main character doesn't talk to you, he's just out there hunting, also makes you take him more seriously, because he's this big, muscly dude who's way too vascular for his own good, and when he doesn't talk, it just makes him seem like more of an authentic tank. Like, he's just a tank going around hunting stuff. And that's so cool! Every page is just so well done. There's nothing wasted in this book. There's no extra dressing. It's just the absolute essentials to get the feeling across. And it does a really good job. I'm mean, Andrew Krahnke says in the beginning of the comic that he's not a writer and writing is hard. So he doesn't have any of the typical author ego that other new authors have, where they think that they understand symbolism and metaphor and all these fancy literary devices, so they're gonna prove it to us by writing this super complicated story that ends up having no real emotion to it. This guy doesn't need to prove anything about how he writes, so it's just what he knows. It's super simple and it leaves tons of space for us to care about the character. Really, simple is better, unless you're Alan Moore or Jonathan Hickman, I don't know. So throughout the book we have lots of good foreshadowing, and if you're not paying super close attention you might not notice it, but very early on we see him wandering through the woods and there's some trees. And I saw those trees and immediately thought, oh, there's been a bear there. But it's not obvious if the bear is still there. We don't know if he has anything to worry about. For all I know, it could have just been a little detail he put in to make the world seem more real. I don't know. It's cool either way. But then a few pages later, you see these trees absolutely demolished. And the second time you see this, you know, oh, that's a big deal. I need to be noticing that. And not only that, but these trees are much more demolished than they were before, which gives us the sense that whatever it is getting closer. And then, much later in the book, the bear finally shows up, and you could miss him. You could miss him if you're not looking closely. Like, I went right over that bear and down to this panel where you hear the bear running up to him. And then I was like, oh, did he show the bear? And yeah, he's way back there. This is really subtle foreshadowing. It's really good. It feels like a movie. And then I'm not even going to show you the fight scene pages. They are so good. The fight scene between this guy and the bear, it's so artistic. It's so well done. This comic is great. This is a work of art. And then we've got another bonus story at the end. We have two stories in this issue. There's the one ongoing story, and then there's a separate little self-contained story at the very end. And this little story at the end is just an intense meditation on stubbornness. It's page after page of this guy being super stubborn, and you feel like you're in there with him. And I feel like that story at the very end is supposed to represent how Andrew Krahnke felt about this comic. Just so determined and so exhausted and frustrated and stubborn. He was gonna get it done no matter what. Doesn't matter how much it sucks, doesn't matter what other options there are, he's going to get this thing done because it's what he set his mind to. And I love that. This whole issue is so potent with emotion, and it's what comics are about. This comic has great art that elevates the moment and makes you really feel what the characters are feeling. So if you haven't bought this issue, go out and buy it. If your local comic store doesn't have any more copies, ask them to get another copy. Let's get this into second printing. Let's get this into third printing. Let's make sure this series blows up because Andrew Krahnke deserves it. The blood, sweat, and tears that he put into this comic deserve to be recognized. And even if you haven't worked super hard on it, it's still great. This product is great. This is what more comics should look at for inspiration. So I'm giving issue 1 of Bloodrik a 10 out of 10. I'm sure you're not surprised. There was not a single thing about this I didn't like. It surpassed my expectations. It furthered the medium. It made me feel all kinds of things as I was reading it. That's what comics are about. So that's a 10 out of 10. Did you get it? What do you think? Today's question comes from Jacob Randall, and he wants to know, what is your favorite band? I exclusively listen to Viagra Boys and Mark Revier. Nothing else, ever, for the rest of my life. Thanks.